Hey everybody, Jake here from CVP, and today we are taking a look at DZO Film's latest lens. This is the X-Tract probe lens. Probe lenses aren't anything new in the filmmaking industry, but this new lens from DZO offers one big unique feature that the others don't: the ability to zoom from 18 to 28mm while holding a constant maximum aperture of t8. This zoom adds a whole new dimension to the traditional probe lens, but how does it perform? Well, let's take a look. Probe style lenses have been a staple across a range of different productions for years now, but the introduction of Laowa's affordable probe brought this style of lens to a whole new level of production. This means that over the past few years specifically, they've become incredibly popular, from being used on feature films to commercials. I actually spotted one in some recent behind the scenes of the fantastic film The Substance, where they used it for an awesome mirror eye shot. The BTS video for this film and the film itself is excellent. It's not only a great film, but the cinematography is particularly fantastic, so they're both worth checking out if you haven't already. One thing that a lot of people familiar with Laowa's probes have been asking for is a zoom, and this is where the X-Tract sits as a unique option. The lens has clearly been designed with cinematography workflows as its focus. It feels very well built and solid in the hand, and fits in with DZO's existing lens designs nicely. It's quite a large, long lens, but given what it holds inside, I don't think it's too bad. The X-Tract has a maximum aperture of t8, which is on par with Laowa's Probe 2, and much faster than the original T14 probe from Laowa. This larger maximum aperture means the barrel is quite thick, but it's similar in size to the Probe 2, which is the same aperture, though this lens can actually be stopped down to T45, whereas the Probe 2 is limited to T40. Considering it's housing 25 elements in 18 groups, it's not super large and heavy, and for the kind of work it's going to be used on, it will be easily manageable. The lens has a 1/4 inch thread on the barrel out of the box, but it actually comes with these extra lens support clamps as well. These can be clamped around the thick and thin part of the barrel and will allow you to use lens supports to add extra rigidity to your rig. This is a really nice thing to include out of the box and makes running this lens with motors easy and robust. With macro, using a solid rig and support system is crucial, so this is a really nice touch from DZO. The X-Tract is available with 3 different configurations: the direct view, which is the one we have of us here today, the 90-degree view, and the periscope, which will both be coming out soon. I really wish we had these extra attachments, as I think these are key parts of this lens, and what makes it really interesting. While you can switch the different modules out, as you can with Laowa's Probe 2, this isn't something that DZO recommends, and they will only be selling these modules with the rear lens group attached. This is similar to the way Laowa handle things with the Probe 2, but I was really hoping that they would be much easier and recommended to switch while still only using one single rear block. Though I do understand that this is probably to preserve optical quality, as you may run into issues when swapping these out. The X-Tract has standard 0.8 pitch gears across the focus, zoom and aperture control rings. On the focus ring we can see a metric or centimetre only scale, and a window with the magnification ratios at 18 and 28mm throughout the focus scale. It has a nice long focus rotation of 300 degrees, which is good for a lens like this. This kind of lens is going to be used with some kind of geared focus control system, so 300 degrees means that you have a good amount of range to be really precise with your focus. The X-Tract also has the ability to rotate the entire barrel of the lens. This is something that was possible with the Probe 2, but there is no gear for rotation. You had to rotate that by hand. This is awesome to see on this lens. You just need to remember that this is rotating the entire lens, gears included, which means that you can't use motors on those while rotating the lens. You unlock the lens using this rear ring, and you even have marks for the rotation degree amount, which is a really nice touch and makes setting the lens back to straight really easily. We don't unfortunately have the 90-degree or periscope attachments, which are the lenses you need to use to really take advantage of this rotation. When returning the lens back to 0, this system is really nice and easy to use when on camera. The X-Tract is also waterproof up to the indication line here. This is a pretty good amount of its long barrel and means that you have about 28 centimeters of waterproof reach. Compared to the size of the Laowa Probe 2, the X-Tract is a good bit shorter, which you could either see as a good or a bad thing depending on what you need. The version of the lens we have with us here is PL mount, but as with lots of other DZO lenses, this mount is easily trimmable and may be interchangeable in future, but really PL is going to be the mount most chosen to use with this lens. As the zoom of the lens is really its biggest unique selling point, let's check out how Parfocal it is. Focusing at the tele end and then zooming out throughout the range, we can see that it holds focus really well throughout the range. There's some slight shifts, but overall it performs really well. When it comes to focus breathing, the X-Tract is actually incredibly impressive. Throughout the range, breathing is well controlled, especially considering that it's a specialty macro zoom lens. It does perform a touch worse at the tele end, but compared to the Probe 2, you can really see just how good it is. The X-Tract has a close focus of 6mm from the front lens element, which is roughly 473mm from your imaging plane. This results in a magnification of 1.4:1 at 18mm and 2.1:1 at 28mm. This is incredibly close, so close that you'll probably find it quite hard to light things sometimes this close, and run into shadow from the barrel in some situations. It would be cool to see some kind of attachment for the front of the lens for some kind of ring light like the original Laowa probe had. Anyway, it performs well near close focus, images look sharp and detailed, which is good as this lens is going to spend a lot of time near its close focus. If you want to keep up with the latest and greatest kit, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to buy anything you see in this video, or want to get your hands on this new lens or any other kit for that matter, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. The X-Tract has a rated image circle of 43.2mm, which will cover plenty of full frame sensors, but may vignette on slightly larger ones like the V-Raptor 8K VV. So to see how it performs, we captured it using our regular coverage methodology, and the results are available on our lens coverage tool on our website. Starting at 18mm T8 at close focus, we can see that performance is fine when using a 36x24mm sensor. However, the extra width of the Raptor means that we can see some hard vignetting in the corners. At infinity, this does disappear, and when you stop down to T16, we can see that the harshness of the vignette improves at close focus. At 20mm, it performs very similarly, but a little better. If you want to remove this vignette, you will need to zoom into 22mm. However, across the range and T-stop, you can see clear light fall off towards the corners, but stopping down to T16 does make a pretty big difference here. If you want to see exactly how this lens covers your chosen camera and format, head over to our lens coverage and camera comparison tool, link to which is in the description below. When it comes to distortion, the X-Tract starts with barrel distortion at the wide end, which slowly turns into pincushion at the tele end. This performance is pretty consistent throughout the focus range as well. It isn't awful, but substantial enough that it's worth knowing how it performs so you can compose accordingly. When it comes to bokeh, the X-Tract has a maximum aperture of T8, which may sound small, but for this kind of lens, it's not too bad. Looking at some out of focus highlights, we can see that they have a defined edge to them with a slight glow. Wide open, we can see a little bit of cat's eye shape towards the corners of the frame as well. As we stop down, we can see the 10-blade iris starting to form the shape of our highlights. There's minimal colour fringing here as well, which is good, and this character is consistent throughout the range. The Probe 2 seems to have quite similar performance at 24mm, but maybe with a bit more cat's eye and a touch more colour fringing. Overall though, I think the X-Tract does a good job of producing good looking out of focus elements. Taking a look at our focus chart, we can see some characteristics of how the lens performs. Wide open, the lens resolves well, but definitely improves as you stop down. We can also see a touch of colour fringing towards the corners throughout the range, which is persistent even as you stop down. However, in our real world tests, this is pretty hard to see most of the time. Compared to the Laowa Probe 2, the X-Tract at 24mm looks very similar with good performance, however maybe a touch less colour fringing in the corners and better overall contrast. When it comes to transverse aberration, we can see that the X-Tract performs well with a touch of green after our point of focus and a very slightly reddy pinky hue before our point of focus. This is consistent throughout the focal range and is very minor, especially considering this is when focused very, very close, but that's where this lens is going to be used the most. Laowa's main competition to the X-Tract is their Probe 2 series, and that's why we've compared it to it in this video. They're both very similarly priced, but the DZO is maybe a touch more expensive, and they both have different pros and cons. Arguably their biggest differences are that the Laowa has a fixed focal length of 24mm versus the zoom of the X-Tract, and the Laowa has a much longer barrel and more underwater length to it. This could be seen as a pro or con depending on what you need. The DZO does have a better rotation mechanic design with clear rotation degree markings and a gear for the rotation control. Though, as we didn't have the peri probe attachment, we couldn't fully test this. If you want some more detailed advice on which lens might be best for you, drop demo@cvp.com an email. While we were editing this video, Laowa have announced their upcoming probe zoom lens, which is obviously going to compete with this one from DZO. This new lens looks to be 15mm at the wide end and has a 2.3 times zoom range, which works out to be roughly 35mm. It will also be available in 3 different versions: the direct, periscope and 25-degree tilt. They should be coming out in Q2 of this year, and if you don't want to miss any updates on them, make sure to follow us on our socials. DZO's X-Tract adds a new dimension to probe lenses. The ability to zoom, while only 10mm, does allow you to reframe quickly and perform some interesting slow zooms in conventional probe setups. This is the key differential between the X-Tract and the other probe options on the market, and given that the optics are going to be harder to produce, it does mean that it's a little bit more expensive. However, optically, it does perform very well, especially in regards to breathing, so for some, this may be worth the extra costs. I really wish we had the other versions of this lens as well, as I really think they are a large component of the overall package of this system, and I would have loved to have got a motor onto the rotation ring and played with some of the more controlled moves that we could do with that. Anyway, let us know what you think of the DZO X-Tract probe, and if you have any further questions about it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please give it a like, and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you again so much for watching.